On September 28, 2021, the House of Assembly passed the Constitution Amendment Bill 2021, the first parliamentary step toward Barbados becoming a republic by November 30th, which marks the 55th anniversary of the country attaining nationhood. During the debate that preceded the vote, Prime Minister the Honourable Mia Amor Motley offered a detailed explanation of the process being taken by the government to achieve this goal, as well as the rationale and benefits that will accrue from this first step. The Prime Minister also outlined the roadmap to progress that will guide the country's constitutional reform agenda that will begin promptly in 2022. During the debate, several members of Parliament, including Opposition Leader the Honourable Joseph Atherley, also offered their views on the subject.
I rise with the honor, Mr. Speaker, of being able to move the second reading of this constitutional amendment bill, which quite simply seeks to do just four things. One, to revoke the Barbados Independence Order of 1966 as an order in council of Her Majesty, while saving and keeping complete the Barbados Constitution, which existed only as a schedule to that order hitherto. Two, to make provision for a Barbadian to be a head of state of Barbados. Three, to change the oath of allegiance from that to Her Majesty to now the state of Barbados. And fourthly, to ensure continuity in all of the other aspects and functioning of the state of Barbados through all of the offices, appointments, commissions, and everything flowing from the prerogative that was hitherto exercised in the conduct of the affairs of this country, while at the same time vesting all that previously was vested in the Crown, now in the state of Barbados. This is a very simple bill in its terms, but a fundamental bill in its action and intent. This is a bill that allows us to say to the world that we, Barbadians, as we move to celebrate the 55th anniversary of nationhood, would want to complete the process and to build on that which was done by those who went before. It is in no way intended to take away from the work of the father of independence, or indeed the father of democracy before, because without the right to vote and the capacity to control our destiny, we would not have been able to become independent. But what it does is to allow us to close the circle with respect to independence and to move to another state of our development, thereby allowing Barbadians to say to the world that we have the confidence in ourselves to be completely responsible for who we are and what we do and what we say and all that surrounds itself with the nation of Barbados. This is an acknowledgement of the prescience and indeed leadership of those who went before in previous parliaments, starting of course with the Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow, who was responsible for the acclamation that we went forward with respect to independence on the 30th of November. And we believe that just as this country was able to, with confidence, take that step, that what remains now for us to do in terms of both the symbolism but also the reality of the actions is something that is entirely within our province and something for which there ought to be a simple, natural step. Mr. Speaker, somewhere across this land, there are little boys and girls who live out their dreams and think about what they want to be when they grow up. And we would want, as a parliament, that among those boys and girls, there should be a legitimate ambition to be the head of state of this nation. It is no different in the United States of America. It is no different in Brazil. It is no different in many other countries across the world. It is no different in Ghana. It's no different in Kenya. We would want, similarly, for a Barbadian boy or girl to believe that they can, in their own right, in their own skin, in their own country, be equal to the task of being head of state of their nation. And we say this without any rancor, because we accept that since modern settlement in 1625, the head of state has been the monarch of the United Kingdom. And that has had its own torturous journey. But we accept that in recent times, our relationship has been one that has been based on mutual respect, and that has seen us work collaboratively and with respect, as I said, with the monarch. In this particular instance, we are particularly thankful and extend our courtesies, all courtesies and gratitude to Her Majesty the Queen. But there comes a point in the life of a nation when time simply has come. And we believe that that time has come in our nation effectively, while not being matched by the legal and constitutional arrangements of our nation. Or that this government has taken the determination, has taken the decision that the time has come for us now to complete that process. Mr. Speaker, this bill that is before us recognizes that the Barbados Independence Order of 1966, which flowed from the legislation thereto, had as its schedule the Constitution of Barbados. And the truth is that many people, when going to look for it, might well have been confused because of the fact that our Constitution, like that of many other Caribbean Commonwealth countries, was simply the schedule to an ordering council made by Her Majesty, and not a standalone piece of legislation as we have been accustomed to doing in every other instance. This bill today repeals that Barbados Independence Order, while preserving the schedule, which is the Constitution, as the Constitution. And we took the deliberate act of ensuring that we had broad consultation from a legal perspective. There were different views. And in the end, the Honorable Attorney General and myself would have requested an opinion from the former Chief Justice, Sir David Simmons, and the former President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, who by a quirk of circumstances happens to be in Barbados today as we debate this bill. Their view, like those of Mr. Justice Sherman Moore, who was responsible for the drafting of this legislation, is that this entirely works in a manner that allows us to repeal and preserve, while at the same time allowing the government to remain committed to our intent to start the work on a new constitution from January of next year. And what do we mean by that? I've said before in other places that the government will ensure that there will be the most comprehensive consultation, not just by having a bill that may be 150 pages and giving it to somebody for 2 or 3 months without guidance, but a consultation that goes chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter, because that is exactly how our Constitution is written, as you know, Mr. Speaker. And the first set of the chapters deal with the fundamental rights and freedoms. We believe that a new Constitution should deal with fundamental rights, freedoms, and responsibilities, because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to build a nation where active citizenship is the hallmark of that nation. And if that is to be the hallmark of the nation, then it ought to be reflected in the terms and content of the Constitution. This bill does nothing else but seek to make a Bajan the head of state of Barbados. And it is as simple as that, because that is the lacuna that will take us from one point to the other. By also revoking the order in council, we make the clear statement that we want to be in control of our affairs as a republic. We do not intend, and as a parliamentary republic, we do not intend for this country's name to change. We've made that absolutely clear. The other members of the government have made it clear that the name of Barbados remains Barbados. And we don't need to change our name in order to be able to advance in the process of independence. Similarly, we're not changing the date of independence, because we don't see this as anything other than a complete continuum to what was started first in 1950 with the right to vote and the passage of the Universal Adult Franchise Bill, then with the Act of Independence in 1966, and now with the act of making a Barbadian the head of state and removing our constitution from the status of being a schedule to a British order in council.
I'm saying that to reinforce the view that I support, and very strongly so, the move to Barbados becoming a republic. I support the move to our constitution speaking to the appointment of a head of state was a non-executive head of state, as recommended in the Ford Commission of 1998. I believe that cabinet government has served this country well since, 1954, early 50s. Cabinet government has served this country well, with the executive head of government, so to speak, being rooted in the office of the Prime Minister and head of cabinet. And so I don't know that we need to go to a position where we have an executive head of state, and then we find ourselves faced with all of the confused realities that others have had to face, with blurred lines of responsibility and dual seeming roles, and conflict of personalities. I don't know that we need to go there. And I believe that we can reserve the executive branch of government, such as has served us well since the 50s. So I'm making it clear, I support, as the Ford Commission recommended, a non-executive head as president of the Republic of Barbados. I support, and I said this very early in the piece, the Honorable Prime Minister has referred to it today, and she did alert me before she did that she would do this. I have no problems with that. But very early in the piece, when the Honorable Prime Minister indicated when the time was appropriate to use her words, she would be wanting to lead her government in nominating Her Excellency, currently serving as Governor General, to be the first President of the Republic. And immediately I publicly said I'm supportive of that, again, because that is very much part of the recommendations of the Ford Constitutional Reform Committee of 1998, stipulated or recommended that the incumbent Governor General at the time when the transition was made should be the first President of the Republic. I support that. We can go into all of the credits that we could identify that may be associated with the professional career, the personal bearing, the contribution of the current office of Governor General, Her Excellency. And there'll be a time, I presume, to do that in fuller detail. But I support that coming out of the Ford Commission as well, and will join in that nomination of Her Excellency at the appropriate time when the moment comes. I support the process by which the election, the nomination will take place, and subsequently an election will be held and a vote taken. I support the notion of a 2/3 majority of both houses, where a vote has to be taken, voting independently, 2/3 of this honorable chamber and of the other place. I do not believe, as some would advocate, that a simple majority in situations such as this would suffice, especially in this first instance of Barbados becoming a republic and naming a first president. A simple majority can, in my view, in our system of government, lend itself too easily to politics being the dominant dynamic, which will influence the result and outturn of such events. If you take, for instance, the configuration of the last Parliament here, House of Assembly, Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, was 16 to 14, and were we to have gone Republic then, and the government of the day were to have nominated person A, then by simple majority force of numbers and not large numbers, that vote could easily have carried, especially when one takes into consideration the dynamic of prime ministerial dominance over cabinet and over parliament to some extent. So I support 2/3 vote when the vote, if it becomes necessary, of both houses of the Honorable Parliament voting separately, both for election and, in the case, should it ever come to that, of removal from office. I also support, as I anticipate will be made known to the House, in the case of a vote being expressed, that would be by secret ballot. I think these things are important in the absence of a referendum, for which many people have called. We operate under a representative democracy. There are those who have called for a referendum. I can live without a referendum on the issue. Once there's a proper program of education and information, there are many who have grown up in this country ever since the heady days of this debate, who have not perhaps been the beneficiaries of much of the argument on either side, and perhaps they need to be better informed as to what this is all about. They may be helped to disabuse their minds of some of the myths and misgivings that may have fallen upon their ears. In the absence of a referendum, a people's vote, in the face of the fact that we have a properly functioning representative democracy, and that the people of Barbados, through their representatives in this House, who, when time comes to vote, one imagines vote in their interests respectively, that this is where we can achieve what we want to achieve without in any way fearing that we may be going against the will of the people.
The Constitution says, goes through the preamble, and it says, "Now therefore the people of Barbados proclaim that they are a sovereign nation." Sir, let me deal first with the excursion into legal theory that the Leader of the Opposition sought to go into. And I promise you I'll be respectful, but you know there's that saying that a little learning can sometimes be a dangerous thing. You see, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing is in law grounded on our proclamation and declaration of sovereignty. And what the Leader of the Opposition and those people who support that simplistic view, that we can't do this and we can't do that, they forget the purpose and intent of the very chamber that we are in, sir. Because in section 48 of our Constitution, it says, that the Parliament of Barbados shall make laws for the peace, order, and good government of our country. So I begin to deal with the argument that we can't revoke the independence order and we can't do this and we can't do that by first saying we are sovereign and we can. But if you want legal authority for it, look at Section 48 of the Constitution, which says that this Parliament, is to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Barbados. That's what it says. Now, sir, there are some people who somehow, I don't know how they manage it, they seem to have come to grips with the notion that we somehow have the power to declare that we are a republic, but in their mind, they don't see the roadmap to how we get there. So the opposition has no difficulty with us becoming a republic, but his problem is the roadmap. I have sat in meetings, sir, and one of the opposition's appointees to another place and said, "You're all doing it the wrong way. You're doing it the wrong way." And we ask him, "What's the right way?" We give him an opportunity to provide a legal opinion to establish for us what his thinking of the right way is. We haven't seen a word yet. Now, sir, for what it is worth, and for those people who believe that we cannot amend the independence order, and just to recapitulate, the argument by the leader of the opposition, or the argument that he chose to repeat, is that the Barbados Constitution is a schedule to the 1966 independence order. And the basic principle is that if you repeal the order, then all of the constituent parts of the order fall with it. All of them. It makes sense. If there's a roof on a house and you demolish the roof, you demolish the house too. But it would be helpful if the proponents of that argument look simply at Clause 4 of the Amendment Constitution, sir. Remember that Parliament is the it is the lawmaking body of the land. We can make any law as long as it's consistent with the Constitution. And when you look at Clause 4, and let me say that, if you look at Trinidad did more or less the same thing, except that instead of amending the Constitution, Trinidad threw the whole old one and enacted a new one. We're not doing that. We're doing half of that. They revoked the independence order, and then they put a new constitution in place. And that's what they wanted to do. That suited them. We're not there. But what we have provided in Section 4.1, and remember this is our Parliament. We can pass any law. And Section 4.1 says, the independence order is revoked. Now, there are people who argue that we can't even do that, but I'll spare a minute on that in a moment. The independence order is revoked. But this Parliament, sir, goes on to say, but the revocation of that order shall not affect the validity of the Constitution settled in the schedule to that order. Now, sir, this lawmaking body has the full power to revoke the order and at the same time say, notwithstanding that we're revoking the order, we are keeping this. We're revoking the order. It has no place here. Done with that. But the schedule we are keeping. So we say we revoke the order, but the revocation does not affect the schedule. It doesn't affect the validity of the Constitution. We say, and this, sir, is the lawmaking body of this country. But if that wasn't enough, sir, we go on in 4.2 to say that the Constitution referred to in subsection 1 shall be altered in accordance with the provisions of section 49 thereof in the manner and to the extent settled in this act. The important words are coming now, sir. And on the appointed day, the Constitution, as so altered, shall become the Constitution and supreme law of Barbados. This Parliament is enacting it, sir. We are saying we are revoking the independence order. The revocation thereof does not affect the validity of the Constitution. And then we go on to say that the Constitution, as we amend it now, shall, as from the appointed day, become the Constitution and the supreme law of Barbados. You know, I approved about 400 weddings in the last few weeks. I do not think there's a single bride who look at his, a single groom who look at his bride and say to her, "Oh, it's COVID. This is not a good time to get married." Not one. They say it's COVID, let me get married, don't cause it cheap. The world over, people are making decisions about expanding, about retracting, about moving on to a better day. Nobody's saying, this is not a good time because we go. Why is it not a good time? What about COVID stops Barbados from saying the time has come to choose a Bajan as our leader, sir? What has that to do with SARS-CoV-19? I can't see. I can't see it. It does not compute in my small mind. It doesn't. But what computes in my small mind, sir, is the fact that on the 25th of May this year, I was elected by the people of St. Joseph. They chose me to be their representative, as they chose all of us. And I only say the 25th because I happened to do it 2 or 3 days before you. And I went,
I don't
sir.
remember, you mean 2018, not this year.
2018. And I went, sir, and I took an oath before the Governor General, and I said, "I, Dale Dermont Marshall, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God." I have never seen Queen Elizabeth, sir. I have come within touching distance probably of one of her or 2 of her heirs. And I may even have met them. One of the many million people that they meet every year. And our judges, sir, our judges went, we just appointed 7 new judges, and they went up to swear before the Governor General. I do swear that I will well and truly, what, sir? At least I got to say, I will be faithful and bear true allegiance. But hear what our judges say. I will well and truly serve our sovereign lady Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, in the office of Judge of the High Court. That's what our judges went and swear, sir. They're not dispensing justice any place in England. They're dispensing it here. But instead of choosing, instead of being able to say, "I pledge to serve the people of Barbados," they pledge to serve Her Majesty, or Sovereign Majesty, sir. And there's somebody who could tell me that we shouldn't change that now because of COVID? You know, sir, Simeon McIntosh, a brilliant West Indian professor of law, he argued, yes, we became independent, all of us became independent, and we've made our way, and we do this, and we do that, and we do the next thing. But he argued that there were 2 things, 2 vestigial things that were needed before we could fully claim to have severed our colonial relationship with England. 2 things, sir. He said one was our relationship with the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. where we look to England, people who only ever come down here on holiday in the short pants and hang out in Sandy Lane to dispense justice for people in Checker Hall and Horse Hill. That's what we were doing, sir. That's one of the vestigial relationships. And the other one, sir, is the Crown. And we were brave enough, when we were last in government, to get rid of the first one. So we have said we will be the masters of our judicial fate, even though we swear to serve our sovereign lady. We got rid of that one, sir. So following Simeon McIntosh's argument, there's only one left. There's only one left. And that one, sir, is our relationship with the Crown. You know, none of us get to choose our parents. But for as long as Barbados has this umbilical cord connecting us with the monarchy, sir, we don't even get to choose who is our executive.
I'm really pleased to hear the various perspectives that preceded me. But I am of different stock, not because I want to be, but don't want to be academic. I don't want to be ideological. I want to be very pragmatic about this exercise today. And let me make it very clear. I am unequivocally supportive of this change, this constitutional change. I'm not a constitutionalist. I listen to all the arguments about ordering council and constitutions, but I also know other countries, in order to get where we are about to go, they use guns and bombs, and they got there, and they wrote the Constitution thereafter. Because this is about our freedom. It is strange enough that these bodies, and therefore parents, who now form the manure that occupy the lands of Barbados, the oppressed, the children of the oppressed, could spend lots of time trying to determine if we are doing the right thing or the wrong thing. All across these lands, sir, there are bones and blood and bodies. In every space on this land belongs to the black people of Africa. There can be no argument about any form of an advanced stage of our freedom and our democracy. And that is why I say to you, sir, I am from the nigger yard of yesterday, leaping from the master's whip and the shame of myself. So I understand that very well. That's Martin Carter, one of the greatest poets in the region.
Now, sir, on November 30th this year, we will celebrate 55 years of independence. And under normal circumstances, sir, when an individual reaches 55, they start thinking about early retirement and those types of things, sir, with respect to their golden years. What we are seeking to do, sir, is to send a clear signal to Barbadians that this country, reaching this far, we cannot now take that posture as we would normally do in our individual lives, because we now have to prepare a new path, a new course, sir, to ensure that the young people in this country, sir, the young people of this country, that they can see and appreciate all that Barbados truly has to offer. And I don't say so lightly, sir, because I spent most of today, and certainly yesterday, Mr. Speaker, working on ensuring that we can build a bridge, sir, literally with the African continent. And we have welcomed, sir, the president of the African Import Bank, sir, to Barbados. And the reason that we have done so, sir, is quite deliberate, because we want our young people, sir, to be able to understand that the African continent and Africans globally, that we are part, sir, of that story. And to the extent that we want to build bridges and opportunities for investment, enfranchisement, sir, with respect to our young people and the young people across the African continent, sir, that this Barbados Labour Party government, sir, is working to bring that to fruition. And so this is not just an exercise, as some people may argue, with respect to the Constitution. But I say that at 55 years old, sir, we can pass any law in this chamber that gives more rights, sir, to any Barbadian, whether by birth or descent or naturalization, sir, for that matter, to give further rights to any Barbadian. And any suggestion, in my view, sir, because I'm not a lawyer, sir, I'm not a legal scholar of any type, but I'm a Barbadian. And we were all sent here 3.5 years ago, sir, with a very clear mandate to chart a different path for Barbados.
Now, I don't expect that there to be unanimity on every single thing, but the truth is that is the perspective that we have brought to this matter. And we feel strongly, Mr. Speaker, that it will make the fundamental difference once Barbadians understand, as we did with the Thorne Commission, that we want people to participate chapter by chapter and break it down into bite-sized chunks so that people can speak to each aspect of it rather than speaking glibly and globally and nobody catching what they're saying. Mr. Speaker, I also accept that there must be continued public education, and I say to the Leader of the Opposition that I hope that he will join us in that effort of ensuring that there is public education for the benefit of all generations, because this is our country and we need to ensure that the level of appreciation and recognition of rights and responsibilities such that we have active citizenship as the hallmark of Barbados and not simply passive citizenship, that we can achieve that if we work together on these things. So, Mr. Speaker, we don't see this as a republic by any other means other than a clear example that this is where we are going and that this is how we want to govern ourselves going forward. I said, and as to the legal issues, lawyers are perhaps like economists. They say, one-handed economists. Bustamante asked for in Jamaica, former Prime Minister of Jamaica asked for a one-handed economist, because he says every time I talk to an economist, they tell me on the one hand and on the other hand. Well, I don't necessarily want to associate the legal profession with that, but I will say this, that the late Jack Dare would tell us all the time that you argue a case once in court. And the truth is that the courts are always open to those who believe that there is a different and better way. But we are satisfied that we have chosen the way that accords not only with legal precedent, but also, Mr. Speaker, with our interpretation of the law. That why now? We are in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, we've had the worst pandemic in 102 years. We've had the worst ashfall in 119 years. And we've had the worst hurricane in 66 years. But this government stands today to say that that shall not dampen our spirits, nor shall it leave us in the ground.
And as Barbados continues its move towards becoming a republic, the public education drive will continue to sensitize Barbadians about what it will mean for Barbadians now and for future generations.